Welcome to Autopia. Episode 2. A 10-cubit diameter shaft shall be our ticket to dinner. I'm Sam Story, and today in the world of Autopia, we're building the relationship between the quote-unquote normal people of the world, that's the autistic people, and the allistic people, who are a small minority. This is episode 2 of Autopia, in which we'll centre on an interaction between autistic and allistic people in an early period of human history. We're going to the country of Raat, a society similar to ancient Egypt, or Kemet as they called it, meaning black land, referring to the rich, dark, fertile soil left behind after the land was flooded by the Nile River, which is pretty ironic, considering that 96% of the modern-day country of Egypt is covered in desert. I have fond memories of studying ancient Egypt in primary school. Here in the UK, it's one of the few cultures' histories besides British history that we learn about in our early education, so it was fun to relive some of those memories when researching for this episode. We find ourselves in the city of Menekh, that's spelt Menekh. It's a bustlingly large community along the banks of the Aru River. That's the equivalent of the Nile, or just what the Nile is named in this world. The home of kings. The centre of administration in Khamet. Well, as you would expect a bustling community to be in this world. If you had the chance to see this city, one thing you'd notice first is the houses. They're a lot bigger than a lot of the houses you've seen before, allowing each resident to have personal space, which is a high priority to most of the residents in Khamet. These houses are made of bricks, which themselves are made of mud. Some are quite immaculate, with balconies on the top floors allowing for peaceful introspection on warm summer evenings, as well as manicured vines dangling down. Other houses are less ornate, and more, let's just say practical. More rectangular-looking buildings with open-top ceilings, with what looks like wooden sticks poking out. Interestingly, there are no windows on the top floor. You might think, well, Sam, what's the need for windows? It's an open-top ceiling after all. Well, in ancient times, one possible reason why a small hole in the wall of an open-top level of your house will be useful for attacking your enemies. Let's just say, in this world, there isn't as much of a need to attack your enemies, but more on that later. In one of these houses, there live two people, Amunet and Sekani. Amunet is a 20-year-old scribe who works in the prestigious halls in the Temple of Thoth, a central figure of Raat's writing community. Her memory and ability to write in hieroglyphics are exceptional, and the community considers her a valuable asset thanks to her dedication and recall abilities. Sekani is a 28-year-old artist, specializing in crafting intricate pieces of jewelry and amulets adorned with precious gems. He, like his partner Amunet, has a keen eye for patterns, with a quite frankly insane ability to focus intensely on his craft. Amunet and Sekani met at a communal crafting event held in the city of Khamet. It took place out in the desert, around 5 kilometers from the edge of the city, in fact, not in the city itself. At the annual gathering of craftspeople in the city of Khamet, they were working side by side, meticulously shaping clay into intricate figurines inspired by historical figures of Raat. Their shared enthusiasm for craftsmanship sparked a natural conversation. After this initial encounter, several more dates set up to mold clay, among other things, became birth to a meaningful connection. Fueled by their mutual admiration for art, nature, and craftsmanship, this connection later evolved into an inseparable companionship, embarking on countless adventures together and forging a profound bond rooted in their shared passions and mutual understanding. Always what you want in a relationship. In their early years of dating, some of their adventures that they went on turned out extraordinary, like the time they infiltrated the hidden temple of Sekhmet, finding within the temple ancient manuscripts, which after they spent 3 months painstakingly translating, ended up revolutionising the whole of Raat's medical practices. They're a pretty big deal in the country because of it. Some of their other adventures seem more mundane at first, but I can assure you, still turn out intriguing. Such as this one. For the past year or so, the couple have been adept at domesticating and hunting Dorcas gazelles, which are relatively common small to medium-sized antelopes. However, they had heard rumours from the town's handyman Patar that water buffalo had been seen along the banks of the Aru. One day, their reliable method of storing the meat of gazelles, as well as crops such as emmer wheat and barley, had finally failed. They dreaded this day coming. Ever since they built their first home in Menech, they had used an intricate method of drying and smoking perishable meat such as gazelle. The meat was smoked over a slow-burning fire in order to dehydrate and preserve it, and then lavering it in salt. However, due to a rather perfect storm of events in recent weeks, this method, for the time being at the very least, no longer proved viable. For one, this had been one of the driest years within living memory of anybody in the city, and for some of us around here, that stretches back pretty far. Also, an ongoing dispute over the water buffalo meat trade with the neighbouring nation of Kushala to the south has all but halted salt excavation in the region. In this part of Africa, known to the people here as Keb, smokier air quality on average, thanks to wildfires, has created an unusual rain shadow effect, making Raat fairly dry on average. But on the other hand, Kushala is no stranger to a prolonged shower, so naturally it's indebted with tons more salt. Back to our heroes, Amunet and Sekani. These two were enjoying a peaceful morning in their living room, drinking a type of hibiscus tea known as khamu. Suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, Ptah, the town's professional handyman, starts knocking on their door so hard he might as well be knocking it down. This situation isn't entirely new for the duo. Salespeople can occasionally be a little on the aggressive side when they've been rejected by the past 15 houses down the street. Amunet has always been the one to open the door. She briskly paces, fairly carefully places one hand on the makeshift handle, and begins to turn. Ptah barges in. He's a man in his 40s, who's a little on the heavier side, with a round face and deep dark brown eyes. He has short, dark, curly hair, and a slightly unkempt beard with flecks of grey hairs visible, with a tool belt around his waist. "Hello?" Ptah says. "Have you seen the news?" Ptah doesn't greet Amunet and Sekani by name, you may have noticed. Rather, just saying hello. Well, he doesn't exactly say hello, he says Sahen, but we'll get more into the language that the citizens of Raat and other countries speak in the next episode. Ptah just says hello, because it's not natural for the Raashan to say people's names unless it's strictly necessary. In fact, this is true for many cultures throughout Autopia. Amunet quickly replies, "What news?" Her heart rate and breathing increase in doing so. "I've heard that Hekahekama of Kushala is willing to lend extra salt to Raat, in exchange for killing the stray water buffalo on the banks of the Aru River," Ptah says. Hekahekama is the ruler of Kushala. In case you've forgotten, that's the kingdom to the south of Raat, roughly where Sudan is in our world today. Sekani overhears the conversation and speedwalks into the foyer of the house. "What's going on?" Sekani says slightly awkwardly. Amunet feeds back Ptah's information, saying, "If we can kill a water buffalo, Hekahekama will give us some of the Kushalan salt reserves." Sekani replies, "Well, I've been anticipating something like this. But I'm honestly quite apprehensive about this. Can we have a private chat?" "Sure," Amunet says, and politely asks Ptah to stand outside the door for a minute. Which is nothing new for him, of course. A private chat is a common occurrence within the culture of Raat. It's essentially built into the fabric of life here. Amunet and Sekani step outside into their back garden. It's around 40 degrees Celsius outside, that's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Certainly not the ideal conditions for any potential argument to ensue. Sekani says to Amunet, "I just don't think it's fair that we have to kill an animal, let alone a predator, to appease the ruler of Kushala. Why do we have to cater to them? What have the Kushalans ever done for us?" Surely we can find another way of keeping ourselves fed, or just try and get salt from within our own borders. Amunet replies, don't you know what's going on? Salt prices in the markets have gone up faster than a plume of smoke. And besides, you've always been going on about how monotonous our life has become as of late. You've always been waiting for the next big adventure, so let's just do this. Sekani replies, I'm just too scared. I'm not gonna do it. It's just too frightening for me, I can't do it. Amunet responds, let me tell you something that'll make you think you have it easy when you're scared. She says, do you remember the winter of Tutmosa 12, when we had the Great Flood? If I had to pick one chapter from my life to be the hardest, I couldn't find a worthy opponent. My family and I almost lost everything. I was distraught. My father made me this clay doll when I was younger, which I managed to salvage from the wreckage just as our house was filling up with water. It filled up so much so quickly that there was just a crevice of air left, when my father, carrying me in one hand and attempting to swim with the other, started swimming for the front door of my house. He made it out, and I managed to float my way up to the surface where my mother rescued me, but my father fell unconscious after his leg got caught in a tree that was submerged. I never saw him again. The doll's been a reminder of him ever since. You see that box there? It's in there. To which Sekani replies to this emotional story, wow, I never knew that about you. Why didn't you tell me? Amunet replies, honestly, I was just too scared as well. It's a cubit I've been carrying around for years. A cubit is an idiom. Wait, okay. We've got a few things to explain in this passage, if you don't know. Okay, first of all, let's start with a cubit. A cubit is an idiom used within Ra'at. And before you say anything, yes, autistic people in this world, the majority of people do use idioms, but more on that in a future episode. Another thing is, Amunet said, do you remember the winter of Tutmose 12? That might be a bit confusing to some of you, I can imagine. How years work in Ra'at is that. So, Ra'at, like Kushala, has emperors. In fact, a lot of countries around the world at this time also have emperors. And the current emperor, as of this story taking place, Tutmose, has been on the throne for 21 years. And Amunet says, do you remember the winter of Tutmose 12? So that would have been 9 years ago. Okay, now that that's cleared up, back to the story. Sekani says, wow, I feel closer to you now. They give each other a hand hug, a common gesture, and kiss. Ptah, looking through the window, and forgetting he's trying to stay hidden, says, ew, gross, I'm still here. Sekani goes back to the door and lets Ptah in. He says, I'm sorry you had to see that. Ptah says, don't worry about it. I'm still resentful towards Merit. It still shocks me a little bit to this day that she's just left Neferet and I before we woke up. Back in Tehen, in Tutmose 15. That's a month within the local calendar of Ra'at. Again, more on that in a future episode. Amunet says to Sekani, well, what do you say? Sekani says, well, at least this will build my character. Amunet says, that's a very mature outlook. Ptah says, on the subject of mature outlooks, my daughter's here. Neferet comes into the house as Ptah places his hand proudly on the makeshift handle. Ptah says to Neferet, hello, my daughter, how are you feeling? You may have noticed that Ptah said, how are you feeling, instead of how are you? This is perhaps a much more literal greeting. It's common throughout many cultures, and throughout many time periods in Autopia. Neferet says to the three of them, I'm good, Dad. I was hanging out with Capri and Asha in the communal garden. We saw Imhotep. I think he's got a secret girlfriend these days. I've seen them exchange jokes and stare into each other's eyes in the Whispering Garden. Neferet is of fairly average appearance for a girl of her age. She has a knack for hunting, and a special interest in hanging out with friends and sometimes getting in way more trouble than other kids. If you haven't already been able to tell, Neferet is allistic. The adults in the room don't know that though. It's a fun instance of dramatic irony. But back to their conversation. Neferet says to her father, Ptah, well, gonna run now, bye! And makes a stance preparing to run back into town to meet with the aforementioned neighborhood kids. Ptah says, Neferet, wait! Do you want to do something fun today? Neferet replies, no, I'm good, see you, Baba. Baba is a term of endearment for your father, by the way. Ptah says, Amunet and Sakani are going to kill a water buffalo. If you come along, I'll get you some dates. That's the fruit, by the way. I was never a fan of those as a kid, but apparently some people to this day still eat them. Neferet says, only if they're dipped in honey, Baba. Ptah says, deal. As Neferet's getting ready behind the house, Ptah makes a snide remark to Amunet and Sakani, saying, kids, Nef's lovely. My relatives say she's a bit different, like she only really cares about her friends rather than crafting or geography or like the emperor of this country, 3 countries to the south of this one. But I just see that as her, you know? Neferet, coming back from the outside corner of the house, says, what'd you say about me? Ptah says, only how good you've been lately. Amunet and Sakani prepare their equipment to go buffalo hunting. They get a spear. It's an old one that's a bit shoddy, but they reckon it'll do the job. I mean, how hard can it be to kill a water buffalo, right? Right? They also get a couple of their best shields, and 3 arrows each. How hard can it be to kill a water buffalo with 6 arrows? Sakani says to Neferet, we only have 2 bows. I guess you'll just have to watch this time, young friend. Neferet says, why is this so boring? Why can't I just be... no. Oh no, no one respects me when I speak up about these things. She thinks to herself, I'll just have to go along with it, but doesn't say anything. The 3 of them leave the house, saying bye to Ptah, who goes off on his day's duties knocking on doors, asking for work, and, in a rare instance, replying to previously existing work call-outs. The salt shortages are causing a lot of people grief in terms of their food storage systems these days. Amunet, Sakani, and Neferet walk along a trodden dirt path into town, with neighbours out in their gardens cooking and crafting, and children playing with balls, and, get this, abaci. That's the plural of abacus. You could say these children are abacists. Eventually they leave town, seeing farmers hard at work in their fields. Then, they reach the marshlands and the floodplains of the Aru River. They don't really talk much on their journey. That's just how they roll. Also, they're pretty nervous. Except for Neferet, who's talking Amunet and Sakani's ears off. She talks about her encounters with Khepri and Asher last week, and how they snuck into the old ruins in Menech to drink nechbit, which is a type of wine made from dates. Where, sure enough, through the reeds, the thing they've been looking for is in sight, down the riverbank. A water buffalo, and it looks bigger than any of our 3 heroes fought. Imagine a black cow or bull with horns that, no joke, are attached to the buffalo's head like an 18th century man with a comb over. Neferet shouts, well, what are we waiting for? Let's catch that thing! Amunet and Sakani quickly say to her, shh, as the water buffalo cocks its head in their direction, only to go back roaming around, a reminder that it's located quite a way down the bank of the river, still within eyeshot, but it can't exactly make out everything it hears from that distance. Amunet whispers to Neferet, are you crazy? You can't speak that loudly or it'll charge right towards us. Neferet says, oh yeah, sorry, that seems to happen for me a lot. Sakani says, we need to suss out a way to get closer to it, and then shoot it with our bows and arrows. Sakani says to Amunet and Neferet, okay, first of all, let's remain quiet. That's a good start. Amunet, you help scope out places where will be potential targets. And Neferet, you just remain quiet for now. Amunet follows Sakani's wishes, scoping out potential areas where the water buffalo could charge to in nearly an instant, such as in an area where reeds are quite sparse. But she also feels a great deal of sensory overload from the rustling tall grass and the reeds, and the buzzing flies. Sakani says, I reckon we should just fire arrows at it. That should get it, right? I think so. Amunet says, Yeah, that sounds good enough. So the two of them aim their bows up into the sky, with the sun shining down above them. Aim at the buffalo, and fire. They use all 6 of their arrows, with 3 each. Somewhat miraculously, 1 arrow appears to hit. Funnily enough, it only startles the buffalo. The buffalo starts walking towards our 3 heroes, not wanting to stick around and find out if it's going to start running. Our 3 heroes start to run. It's pretty difficult to do that in an area as swampy and marshy as this. Their feet are constantly slodging in the water. There's so many reeds in the way, it's just so hard. But eventually, they do find a place where they can climb up onto a nearby hill, dust themselves off as the buffalo runs past and looks for them, but fails to find them. They dust themselves off and try and come up with a new plan. Amunet says, "Well, that was harder than I ever could have thought." Sekani says, "Can we really kill that thing?" Neferet says, "Well, why don't we just go back to town and get more supplies?" Amunet says, "Oh, that's actually a good idea. Let's do that." Sekani says, "Oh, I don't know, I'm just tempted to..." No, there's nothing we can do, is there?" Amunet says. Well, no, Sekani, I think you're being too persistent. I think you're thinking a bit wishfully. Like, you only have a shield. You can't do anything." So the 3 of them decide to go back to town. They walk back through the marshlands, along the path, and back into town. They make it to the center of town. Sekani says, Do you guys know where the weapon shop is? I have no clue." Amunet says, "I think it's along here somewhere." Neferet says, "My dad's been there a few times, he's taken me there, I know the way, let's go. She runs off into a large crowd. Well, as large a crowd you'd expect in this city. In most of Autopia, crowds are generally more sparse than in our world. Amunet and Sekani try to run through the crowd to catch up to Neferet. They pass by Khapri's spice merchants. It has a colourful display of spices from all over Raat, which are displayed in woven baskets. The air there is rich with scents of cumin, coriander, and cinnamon. Tia's herbal remedies, with bundles of dried herbs and medicinal plants hanging from the ceiling, and clay jars filled with various concoctions lining the shelves. The store is known for healing balms and teas, as well as the famous fishmonger of the town, Horace's Fresh Catch. Fresh fish from the Aru River are displayed on large stone slabs. The fishmonger calls out the day's catch to passers-by. "Try my fish! Try my fish! Try my fish!" As you may not expect, that actually gets them to come in. Amunet and Sekani finally catch up to Neferet, and she's standing right outside the weapon emporium. She does know some stuff.
"I told you I know where it is."
She giggles to herself. Sekani says, "Oh, I guess you were right. Let's go in." Amunet and Sekani look at each other, not in the eyes of course. They look at each other's foreheads, and say, yeah, she was right. So they all walk into the store. The sign for the store is on a wooden board above it, with yellow letters, and an image of a bow. On the inside, spears, bows, arrows, and swords are all displayed prominently. The owner is an experienced craftsman who's renowned for his skill and attention to detail, even more so than most of the people around here. He jumps out from behind the counter, surprising our 3 heroes, saying, "Hello, my name's Menech. Welcome to Menech's Weapon Emporium." Now, I hear you might say, Menech? Isn't that the name of the city? Well, yes, it is. Funny coincidence. We'll see what happens when our heroes realise that right now. Sekani says to Menech, the owner, "Why is your name Menech? Why is that your name? This is the city we live in." Menech replies, It's a little weird. My mother had a bit of an obsession with this town. I think it was, something to do with my father, who's sadly no longer with us. She was a little obsessed with him in certain ways, and how he came from this city and he loved it. So, yeah. Menech's a shorter man, in his early 50s, with a bit of a quiff. His hands are calloused and strong from all the spear making he's been doing. He's wearing a sleeveless tunic made from durable linen. Before any of our heroes can say another word, Menech says, Now, look at this spear. I know you want this spear. I know you want it. It's so cool. It's the coolest thing we have. Here, take it. Don't you wish you could ever hunt like your neighbor or your neighbor's prized possession animal? Well, now you can. Here, take it. It's the best thing ever. And if you don't, you'll make me sad. Ooh, you'll make everybody sad. You'll let the entire town down. Do you want that now? Sakani says, well, no. Amunet also says, well, no, I guess. So, what do you say? I'll give you 20 deben for it. Deben is the currency of Rat, if you couldn't already tell. Just when Amunet and Sakani are about to pull out their deben to pay for this shoddily made spear, as they think it's all they can get, really, Neferet pipes up and says, Now, wait a second, wait. No, none of this. We can't use that thing. This man's trying to sell us that thing. No. Why can't you sell us better? Why are you making us feel bad about this? Amunet and Sakani are astounded. In that moment, they felt as though they didn't have any other choice but to accept Menech's shoddily made spear. Both of them are used to complaining about things in the past, but they have some kind of mental block around it. They fear that if they complain, then that's just going to make them look bad. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to hurt Menech's feelings either, even though they don't know him at all. It's quite sad, really. But maybe they'll learn to overcome this sometime. Definitely not foreshadowing. Neferet says to Menech, Are you really going to sell us that thing? I see a much better spear just up there. Give that to us. Menech says, But you want this, right? Suddenly, something breaks loose in Amunet and Sakani. They start complaining along with Neferet. They all say, Give us that one! So Menech does just that. He brings the spear down off the shelf and puts it on the counter. Menech says, Alright, that's 20 deben. Sakani, though, not done feeling empowered, is prepared to haggle. He says, How about 15? Menech says, Puh! No, you can't convince me of that. No. You convinced me of one thing, you're not convincing me of that. Well, you didn't really convince me. I just don't like loud noises, okay? I just don't like loud noises. If you do loud noises, then I'll just do whatever means it takes to get you to stop, alright? Sakani says, 17. Menech says, Alright. 18, final offer. Take it or leave it. This spear is... Okay, admittedly it's better than the one I was trying to sell you, but I'll... Alright, I should just stop trying to scam people. It's a problem I have. Menech's pretty open here. Good on him. Sakani says, it's okay. He puts the deben ingots on the counter, which are made of copper. Takes the spear and shakes Menech's hand. Amunet's taken aback by Sakani's assertiveness. She smiles and kisses him. Neferet says, Ew, gross! I did that thing for you. Don't do this. Don't gross me out, okay? Menech says, Yeah, I'm feeling it too. Just stop it, or... No, I can't say that to a customer. Just do whatever you want, I don't care. He sheepishly walks back into his workshop and starts attaching the stone head to another spear. Attaching the head to the stick with rope. This'll do, Sakani says. He walks back out of the workshop and joins our other two heroes. With their brand new spear, which has a little shining glimmer on its head, Amunet, Sakani and Neferet walk all the way back to the marshlands, through the town, through the grass, all the way back to the side of the Aru River. The water buffalo is still in view. In our world nowadays, we'd consider it about 8 PM, The sun is beginning to set, casting a golden glow over dense reeds and the waterlogged terrain. This adds an element of urgency to their hunt. "There it is, I can see it," Amunet says. "Alright, we've got to move quickly this time. I've got this," Sekani says. But. Okay. Neferet desperately wants to go quickly, but the adults quickly tell her who's boss, and tell her no. They navigate quietly through the tall grass, and spot the water buffalo grazing near a shallow pond. It's a massive creature. It's got horns that you'd imagine on a Viking helmet. Well, not that they actually wore horns, but you know, and a muscular build. As they approach it, it seems more formidable than they anticipated. The buffalo senses their presence, lifts its head up in the air, locks eyes with our heroes. Its ears flick in alertness, and once again it starts walking towards our heroes, picking up its speed as it goes. Our heroes very suddenly become alert themselves and very scared. They begin to run away, but then something kicks in Amunet's brain. She notices the best strategy right now is to think on her feet, a skill that she hasn't practiced since the death of her father. Her precise planning and keen observation skills come into play here. She looks for any sort of path between the reeds that can provide some cover, and allowing them to get closer to the buffalo without being detected. Eventually, once again, they get so far away from the buffalo that it can't see them. This is almost like a third attempt now. Amunet sees a natural path through the reeds. She crouches down and starts to shuffle through the reeds. The sound of the rustling reeds and croaking frogs all around overwhelms her, causing her to momentarily freeze. Neferet speedwalks towards her, notices the trouble she's in, and gently guides her forward, ensuring that they stay hidden. Sekani joins them, and crouches down. He says, "Maybe we should use the reeds as a natural barrier to corner the buffalo, making it easier to approach, and once we're close enough, we strike it." Once again, for the third time, the buffalo sees them, suddenly charges at them with an even greater speed than seen before. Sekani's momentarily taken aback by this. The buffalo gets so close to him, it almost completely gores him, but he dives to the side just in time, with Neferet there to catch him. Neferet says, "Oh, see, I am useful, I saved you all." She assesses the situation herself, and suggests using the terrain to their advantage, positioning themselves near a rocky outcrop that could serve as both cover and a strategic vantage point. However, the buffalo is continuing to be incredibly agile and unpredictable, making it difficult to get a clear shot with the spear. It keeps aggressively charging and making sudden movements, really testing their coordination and resilience. So, considering all this, they devise a new plan. Amunet once again surveys the land, looking for a narrow path through which they can funnel the buffalo, limiting its movement. Sekani's holding the spear in his hand above his head. With precision, creeping up to the buffalo, once again, they funnel it into this path. It makes one last desperate charge. By this time it's pretty tired. Sekani's spear flies just as he intended, but the buffalo's momentum carries it forward. Neferet, showing remarkable bravery and quick reflexes, steps in to ensure the spear hits a vital point, while also dodging the buffalo's horns herself. The spear has hit the buffalo. It takes a while, but it gets ever more wounded and finally subdued. It finally collapses. By this point the trio are exhausted. However, they're triumphant, and they've realised the magnitude of their achievement. They've finally solved Menech's food problem. Well, until the system of food storage gets repaired. They've also demonstrated the power of their combined skills and perseverance. Let's take a look at their celebrations. We've done it! Yes! See, I told you I could. He. I told you I'd be useful, and you guys don't listen. So they prepare to transport the buffalo's body back to Menech. They reflect on the challenges they have overcome, and the skills they have strengthened. For Amunet, her attention to detail in finding the path to lure the buffalo through. For Sekani, his innovative problem solving in making and firing the spear. And Neferet's practical leadership, and just narrowly saving our heroes from overstimulation and outright death. These attributes played crucial roles in their success. And this highlights the unique strengths each of our heroes brought to the hunt, and the importance of their collaboration. Amunet and Sakani have incredible attention to detail, but they also get overstimulated pretty easily, and sometimes their coordination isn't the best. Neferret doesn't have the same book smarts, as you'd call it, or attention to detail, or interest in, the things that matter rather than people, but she does have pretty good leadership and social skills. She can tell really easily how others are feeling, and what they're going through, and what help they need. May I remind you that Neferret is allistic. Our heroes wander wearily as the sun's setting, up the hill to the grasslands, and back into Manech as the moon is out, and they deliver the news to the people in the town square, who are in their nighttime robes, eating dinner. Our three heroes are carrying buffalo meat in their hands, which made the trip back pretty hard, especially because they were already tired. The townspeople spot them, congratulate them, and have a huge barbecue. Well, the equivalent of a barbecue in this time and place and world. This has been episode 2 of Autopia, What If They Were the 1%. In episode 3, we'll be discussing the birth of language in this world, and how it is used differently between different people groups and among the people themselves. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.